About 1 month ago, we told you, and emphatically so, on this our program, Talking Politics and Other Issues with Dr. Oladipo, that the expected coalition to unseat President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2027 will use the African Democratic Congress as its platform. Today, all Nigerians can confirm that this has become so. Welcome to another edition of Talking Politics and Other Issues with Dr. Oladipo. And I'm happy to report that my name still remains Dr. Oladipo. I am the managing editor of the Eagle Online, an online newspaper that operates at www.theeagleonline.com.ng. And we're in partnership with one of the fastest growing YouTube channels worldwide, the Eagle Online Nigeria. In this edition of our program, we'll be taking a look at what I've called the expected war in the House of the African Democratic Congress ahead of the 2027 elections. Specifically, looking at what to expect in the presidential race as it will turn out in the African Democratic Congress. But first, our reminder, you'll recollect that a month ago, we told you, and like I said earlier, emphatically so, that the African Democratic Congress was going to become the platform for that coalition. And like we expressed at that time, there were a couple of reasons for it. The major actors had met, and they are taking the position to use the ADC as the platform. A number of issues and reasons accounted for that. Number one was the fact that the constitution of the ADC was flexible enough for the actors to go into the party, take it over, and be legally qualified to use that platform to run for the election. And like we also told you, when the decision to use the ADC was taken, one of the reasons why it was chosen was because it is already a well-known party. There have been some actors who have passed through that party and who have made it popular. Number two also is the fact that a lot of parties in the country are now, and some of those to be formed, have now discovered one of the tactics for being on the ballot, and that is having a name, including the acronym that places it high up on the ballot box. For the ADC, it is high up, far above the All Progressives Congress, which is in power at the federal level and in most states of the Federation. It is also well above the Labour Party and the PDP, the other two well-known parties that did well in the last presidential election. When all these factors were considered, the actors in that show decided and finally settled for the ADC. We reported this to you some 1 month ago, and without blowing our own trumpet, we say kudos to us here on Talking Politics with Dr. Oladipo. So today, we'll be looking at what to expect in the house of the ADC. Certainly, there will be war. Literally, we can say, in that house, in order to determine who gets the ticket of the ADC for the presidential election. And ultimately, like we've all seen, though the president is here to say so himself, that he's going to seek re-election, but all indications point in that direction. There is nobody so far in the All Progressives Congress who has indicated interest in challenging President Bola Tinubu for that ticket. So, who are those that are going to be seeking the tickets? And where will there be war in the house of the ADC. Let's dive into it and look at a few factors. The ADC has become the bride because gradually some factors, including individuals and organizations, are moving in the direction that is opposite where the APC is. And we'll be hearing some voices. One of the most critical of recent has been the Arewa Consultative Forum, which has been very, very critical of President Bola Tinubu. And it is believed that with time, the ACF is going to come out in full to declare its support for any of the strong opposition parties. And the way it is now, the PDP has clearly collapsed. Not even with the reconciliation committee put in place to be headed by a former president of the Senate and who was also a former two-term governor of Kwara State, Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki. In fact, from what we can see, even the Saraki factor in PDP has collapsed into the ADC as it is. One of his strongest pillars, that is one of those backing Dr. Saraki himself, Bolaji Abdullahi, is the spokesman of the ADC now, meaning, without even their saying so, that Saraki is also an integral part of the ADC. So it says a lot about where we are going when it comes to the North and its position. A lot of northern governors have actually declared their support for the APC. But as it is most of the time, by the time the election is closed, the North at some point, even if it's going to be a bit divided, will always take a position on where it is headed. A lot of people have declared support for President Bola Tinubu's re-election, but so also are those who believe that another party deserves to be in power because of what they consider the marginalization of the North. How this plays out between the two isn't entirely the focus of our discussion today, but we are trying to look at the candidates who are going to ignite the war in the house of ADC in 2027. Top on that list is our serial presidential contender and a former vice president of Nigeria, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. We've heard him say, and we've reported him so, and sources close to him have also said, that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who was born on November 25, 1946, and by calculation will be 80 years next year, even before the presidential election, will run for only one term. We reported that here too on Talking Politics with Dr. Oladipo. And that the plan is for him to run for a term and then hand over to Peter Obi, who is expected to be his running mate and vice president for that single term in 2031, for him to also then take the slot of the Southeast and become the presidential candidate in 2031 and then the president ultimately, based on the plan as we reported earlier, you will recall. Now, many have been saying Atiku Abubakar should not run. He should give in to a younger candidate. But what we've seen from his history is the fact that he hardly loses in party primaries for elections. So far, he has taken virtually all the primaries in which he had contested, except, of course, the one that is very well known, when the All Progressives Congress was formed by a coalition of 4 parties, when the then Alhaji Muhammadu Buhari emerged as the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress at a convention that was held in Lagos. And at that time, following the emergence of Muhammadu Buhari, Atiku left the APC and returned to the PDP after a while. We'll recall that Atiku is no stranger to party primaries, and he's always had it good. Even when his boss, then former President Olusegun Obasanjo, was seeking a second term, we all heard of the stories that came out from Jos, the Plateau State capital, where the primaries of the PDP for the 2003 elections took place. At that primaries, reports added that Atiku had to be begged and pleaded with to ensure that his boss got a second-term ticket. As you'll also recall, it was one of the reasons why they parted ways easily in the second term, because it was reported that some governors elected then on the platform of the PDP that held majority of the states wanted Atiku to emerge as the candidate. In fact, some sources said the former president had to prostrate for Atiku and beg him before he got that ticket. So since then, Atiku has also taken part in a few primaries. And the last we'll recall was the 2023 PDP presidential primaries. In that election, the former vice president came first with 371 votes, while a former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who is now the minister in charge of the Federal Capital Territory, polled 237 votes. Former Senate President Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki had 70 votes. And the Akwa Ibom State Governor, then Emmanuel Udom, scored 38 votes. Bala Mohammed, who is still the governor of Bauchi State, and who we are told is also interested in the presidency in 2027, polled 20 votes, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, contrary to the belief that Nyesom Wike will be able to defeat Atiku with all the preparations he put into it and his deep pocket, lost to the former vice president. Yes, Atiku has run for the presidency 6 times. 1993, that's with the defunct Social Democratic Party. In 2007, in 2011, 2015, 2019, and 2023. It lost in all those elections. In 1993, we will recall that he lost to Moshood Abiola. That's the late Basharu Moshood Abiola. For the Action Congress, when he pitched camp with the then Bola Ahmed Tinubu was out as governor of Lagos State on the platform of the Action Congress, he came third. And then also, he contested the primaries of the PDP in 2011. He lost to the then incumbent, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. In 2014, like I earlier reported, he also lost in the primaries to Muhammadu Buhari. In 2017, when he returned to the PDP, he again got the ticket of the party, but lost to President Muhammadu Buhari. Likewise, in 2022, he lost in the general election after winning the primaries of the PDP. So, now that the ADC is here, we've been told that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is insistent on running. And many of our sources are saying he'll win. So many factors account for this. He's well connected. He's been playing the politics for long. And more importantly, he has the deep pockets to fund any election. How this turns out, we may not know when he wins. But one thing is certain, there are two other contenders that are not likely to give in easily. One of them is Rotimi Amaechi. Her name has been on the political scene for some years. Many will recollect that he was the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, 2 terms at that. At some point, he was the leader of the speakers of the State Houses of Assembly, with the Conference of Speakers. He went on to become the governor of Rivers State and was there for 2 terms, entrenching himself as a political force, not just in Rivers State, but also across Nigeria. Shockingly, when he joined the All Progressives Congress from the PDP and took a shot at the presidential primaries in 2022, that is for the 2023 elections, like I said, shockingly, he came second behind Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu won that primaries. While Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu scored 1,271 votes, Rotimi Amaechi shockingly scored 316 votes, even defeating the then incumbent vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who came third with 235 votes. It was not expected at that time. The worst that people were expecting was that Asiwaju Tinubu would take the lead and Professor Yemi Osinbajo will come in second. But Amaechi upturned the predictions and came second. So his ambition will also likely get some attention in the ADC. He's a politician, versatile one at that, and he knows his onions. And then there is also a third force to which many people are paying attention. That's the man, Peter Obi. We'll recollect that Obi came into prominence as governor of Anambra State. 2 terms at that. But what really attracted us to Peter Obi at the time, we'll recollect, was the fact that he was removed by the State House of Assembly and he went to court and got reinstated. And he went on to win his 2nd term landslide. Many have credited Peter Obi with good governance because unlike many of his peers as state governors who left their states in debt, Peter Obi left his state in credit, despite the fact that he executed several projects, uplifted the state of education in his school and healthcare, 2 major areas that have been crying for attention nationwide. Also was the fact that for every community in Anambra State, he was credited with having linked them by good roads. These were things that played a prominent role when he was going to go into the last presidential election. You'll recollect, our listeners, that before the last election, that was the one in 2019, he was the running mate to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar on the platform of the PDP. And that ticket played a big role in uplifting the state of the PDP in that election. That's despite the fact that some factors, including former Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, did not support that ticket. But at the end of the day, while Wike went on to become a second-time governor in Rivers State, that ticket flew to an extent. But for the last election, it was a big shock that with about 6 months to the general election and Obi's defection into the Labour Party, that party came third, and closely so to the second-placed party, which is the PDP, that Atiku flew the flag. And as such, many are expecting that having come into this coalition, he should be given that ticket. One of his major backers is a former governor, Sule Lamido. He has said he's going to mobilize the North for him if he gets that ticket. And that is where the war is. Who among these three will get the ticket? Because some are also saying that a former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, is also not an outsider when it comes to the flag of the APC. They are seeing him as somebody who is capable of drawing some votes. But wherever he belongs now, people are looking forward to his saying so, that he's going to run for the presidency in 2027. The war in the house of ADC will thus be among Atiku, Obi, and Amechi. Some see Obi leaving the ADC if he does not get that ticket. And that largely is because of the role the Obedience are going to play in the scheme of things in 2027. For those who do not know, the Obedience are the supporters of Peter Obi. And before the 2023 election, they indeed mobilized for him. That greatly affected his performance, especially in the southern states. Now that a lot of people have seen him moving into the north and making inroads, the belief is that as a stand-alone candidate for the presidential election, he is going to do far better than he did in 2023. Some are already saying, like I said earlier, that Atiku should concede the ticket to him and back him with a northern candidate as his running mate and allow him to run against President Bola Tinubu. But those who are also the backers of Atiku are saying it's a no. So, of the three that are in the race in the ADC prominently, Atiku and Obi stand out. How this is going to end, nobody knows. But all the contestants or would-be contestants in the ADC are still saying that the focus is not yet on the candidates, but agreeing on a coalition that can defeat President Tinubu. We'll always keep you updated, but this is where we are. 3 candidates and an expected war. Whatever develops, we'll always bring you the update here first. Don't forget to like and share our video. And don't forget also that we are on all social media platforms. You'll find them in our bio. Just follow us, like us, and that will be an encouragement for us to bring you more juicy details of happenings around the world. Until I come your way again, I remain your host, Dotun Oladipo. Keep watching, keep liking, and keep sharing our videos. See you in our next edition. Bye.